Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Swamp Meadow Community Theater's December read-through of The Gift of the Magi, based on the short story by O. Henry, adapted by Shannon McLeod. My name is Tyler H. Vigent, and I'll be your host for tonight. And tonight, with me, are Jonathan Safford playing Klaus. We have Dennis Cretion as Jim, playing the part of Jim. We've got Lori Murphy as Della. We have Nika Shamaradova as the grocer and the madam. And then we have Robin Lofkist as the butcher slash salesperson. Thank you all for joining with us, and thank you for signing up today. This should be a very fun and pleasant evening. Thank you. Thank you. If you are at home and were unable to sign up and want to participate in future readings, go to swampmeadow.org. Sign up for our newsletter and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our next reading will be scheduled for January, and generally we will do it the second week of January, so stay tuned for future updates. And thank you all. If you like what we are doing and would like to donate to Swamp Meadow, go to swampmeadow.org/donate or hit that big donate button if you're looking at our website. And every little bit helps, and we appreciate it immensely. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are dedicating this performance tonight to a friend that we recently lost. A dear friend and member of the Swamp Meadow community, and that of Artie Robillard. Artie was a consistent presence in SMCT, and he brought his love and enthusiasm and joy into every single project that he was a part of. This reading will be dedicated in his memory. Artie used to do a lot of our Christmas shows, and I think this Christmas tale, this holiday tale, would be right up his alley. On behalf of Swamp Meadow Community Theater, we give our deepest sympathies to the Robillard family. Thank you, Artie. Rest in peace, my friend. And without further ado, Swamp Meadow Community Theater presents The Gift of the Magi. Dennis, play on.
Silver bells all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing the cheer to young and old, meek and the poor. Ding dong, ding dong, bells is his home. Big trickle ring, long caroling. One seems to hear words of the cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they found raising the sound.
Hello, I'm Claus, coming at you from NPR, and here to spread some Christmas cheer this evening. Tonight's show will be telling the tale of The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. So sit back, grab some cocoa, and settle in for this timeless tale.
Clink, clink, clink.
$1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer.
Della, that there's a fair price.
But I know for a fact that Mrs. Henry got this for a penny less.
And the vegetable man.
Clearly it's bruised. You can't sell that for full price.
And the butcher.
Mrs. Dillingham, you can't expect me to run a charity, can you?
Until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it.
$1.87. And tomorrow is Christmas.
There was clearly nothing left to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it. Which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. While the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. A furnished flat at $8 per week, it did not exactly beggar description, but it certainly had that word on the lookout for the mendicancy squad. In the vestibule below, was a letter box into which no letter would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, the letters of Dillingham looked blurred, as though they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim, and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a gray cat walking a gray fence in a gray backyard.
Oh, to have the troubles of a cat, the world at your feet, and no pennies necessary for counting. Tomorrow will be Christmas Day, and all I have is $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present, saving every penny for months, with this result. Let me tell you, dear alley cat, $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses were greater than I had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim, my Jim.
Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him, something fine and rare and startling, something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. Suddenly, she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now there were two possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out of the window some day to dry, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, ripping and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again, nervously and quickly. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or two splashed on the warm red carpet. On went her old brown jacket. On went on her old brown hat. With a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she cluttered out of the door and down the stairs to the street.
We hear the cluttering of the door and the stairs.
Madam, Suffragny, hair goods of all kinds.
1-8 up, Della ran and collected herself, panting.
Will you buy my hair?
I buy hair. Take your hat off and let's have a sight at the looks of it.
Down rippled the brown cascade.
A sound effect of tinkling chimes here.
$20.
Give it to me quick.
We hear the snipping, the exchange of money. Snip, snip, snip.
Merry Christmas.
She says this as we hear Della run out down the stairs.
Oh, in the next 2 hours, trip by on our rosy wings. Forget the hash metaphor. She was ransacking the stores for Jim's present.
Oh, too flashy. Not good enough. There's not much time left.
She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out.
Excuse me, May I see that chain?
This one. You have impeccable taste, my dear. Platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design. I'm surprised it's still here.
Oh, it's lovely.
It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him, quietness and value. The description applied to both.
How much?
That will be $21.
With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. Grand as the watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of the old leather strap that he used in place of a chain. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas, and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added to love. Which is always a tremendous task, dear friends, a mammoth task. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully, and critically.
If Jim doesn't kill me before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? Oh, what could I do with $1.87?
At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made, and the frying pan was on the back of the stove, hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his step on the stair away down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment.
Please, God, make him think I am still pretty.
The door opened, and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin and very serious. Jim stepped inside the door as immovable as a setter at the scent of quail. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with that peculiar expression on his face.
Jim, darling, don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold it because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Oh, say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you.
You've cut off your hair?
Cut it off and sold it. Don't you like me just as well? Anyhow, I'm me without my hair, ain't I?
You say your hair is gone?
You needn't look for it. It's sold, and I tell you, sold and gone too. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me, for it went for you. Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered, but nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim?
Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He unfolded his Della. For 10 seconds, let us regard with discreet scrutiny some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week or $1 million a year? What is the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table.
Don't make any mistake, Dal, about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first.
White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper, and then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, for there lay the combs, the set of combs side and back that Della had worshipped for long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers. But the tresses that should have adorned the coveted adornments were gone. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile.
My hair grows so fast, Jim. Oh, oh.
Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out for him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her bright and ardent spirit.
Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it.
Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled.
Dell, let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy you your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on.
The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi.
Yay! Oh man, thank you guys so much. That was fun and great. Oh, I love that story. I love that. I remember that they do this story all the time. My first interaction was with Bert and Ernie, and if anybody remembers that special, I love the gift of the Magi. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If anybody who's watching from home liked what we were doing, there's a link on your page right now, the swampmeadow.org/donations. Even a little helps us during this time. As you know, we have been closed ever since March, and every little bit helps, so we thank you. If follow the link to the page, follow our newsletter for future readings, and stay tuned for more projects. If you guys have any suggestions for any future read-throughs, please email me at productions@swampmeadow.org. That's productions@swampmeadow.org. I'm open to any suggestions, and I really appreciate it. Until next time, my friends, see ya, and thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much to our cast for the gift of the Magi. Everybody, give yourselves a round of applause and bow. Good job, guys.
Tyler, you may want to say that any donation of over $1 million will come with naming rights for a theater.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely right, Dennis. Naming rights. We'll get you a parade too if you want. Yeah, anything to get us that building would really help us out. And once again, this is in memory of our dear friend Artie Robillard. Artie, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, a happy Kwanzaa, a happy holiday, and a happy New Year. Joy on earth, peace to everybody, and have a nice night. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Good night.
Christmas.
Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Happy